Hello, Scrufftards, and one and all, welcome to the Warzone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And we are gonna take a look at shenanigans in Kursk, because it does appear as if Ukraine has launched a successful mechanized assault and taken a Russian town and the surrounding area. And we're starting off with Andrew Perpetua's map. As you can see, a lot of activity over here. This is the area where we're going to be focusing. Before we move over there, I want to highlight, take a look at this, a lot of drone activity to the west in Kursk as well. West of Glushkovo, Ukraine sending in drones to attacking targets over here. At the same time, here, let's zoom in. What happens? Take a look. Ukraine has launched an assault along this highway straight down for Cherkasaya Konopelka, and mappers appear to agree that this town is now under Ukrainian control. Russian drone attack in the next town over, so we have Ukrainians down here and a clear push by Ukraine towards Ulanok. Ukraine appears to have secured this compound here and are also contesting Russian positions within these woods. And as you can see, a lot of action going on. They're pushed past this tactical pig farm all the way over here to this railroad crossing. And we can see and this is Andrew Perpetua's map, if we move over to Mayakovsk 73 and his map, we see the same thing, a push past the tactical pig farm. They're coming down past the petrol station. Was a lot of fighting here last year in December, and moved into Cherkasaya Konopelka, pushed into town, pushing through, heading over here. And here again we see the attack into this small village down here called Fazivka or something. I can't see it, it's in the way here. So quite clearly a big push by Ukraine out of Kolmakov, potentially even coming down this way, catching Cherkasskaya Konopelka in a pincer move, and with it secured, they rolled on through trying to push into Ulanok. And as you can see here, according to Mayakovsk 73, Ukraine is contesting the outskirts of Ulanok, right up here in this wooded area, this wooded outskirts over here. And here we have my map of Kursk. Here we have where Ukraine tried that push towards Berdin that eventually failed by all accounts. But now, some weeks later, we have this big push in this area down here. And if we zoom in a bit, we can see here they've taken over this compound here. A couple of days ago, they pushed Russia out of this street here, out of the outskirts here of this town. They now have made a push down from Kolmakov straight for Cherkasskaya Konopelka, probably along this route as well. They pushed out over here, took control of the tactical pig farm, pushed towards the railroad. Haven't yet reached it yet, as from the maps at least. But they moved in and secured the gas station as they moved south here. And that means you have isolated the Russians in this windbreak between the pig farm and the gas station. Question is, can they hold on? Probably going to get resupplied from over here and over here, but maybe Ukraine can push them out. The situation in the forest here, hard to gauge. The mappers seem to indicate that most of this is under Ukrainian control. I'll leave that. Let's just assume there's fighting going on in the woods here. But everyone seems to be agreeing that the town here is under Ukrainian control, that Ukraine then moved past the town along this road here and made it into, or tried to make it into Ulanok. Russia has come out and said that they have managed to thwart the Ukrainian assault, that they defended and held the line. Mappers seem to disagree, so that could... Right, back at it. Had to check up on the dog. Anyway, yeah. So the Russians claim they have pushed the Ukrainians back altogether, and yada yada yada. Meanwhile, the mappers and all the EU-located positions indicate that Ukraine is in this town, and they have pushed into Fanazivka, which may indicate, and the Russians themselves have admitted that they've been fighting Ukrainians over here in Ulanok. So it could be that Russia has managed to defend Ulanok, but the Ukrainians have, like we've seen, pushed into Cherkasskaya Konopelka. And I think this is more important than we realize. This is a bit more than just a simple counterattack in pushing back the Russians. It puts this operation here, or this section of the front line, at risk for the Russians. This is where Russia can actually cross the Reka Sudja, the river Sudja. They've tried a couple of days ago to cross further south with boats and what have you. Ukraine launched a bunch of drones and prevented that from happening. And as we know, as we've talked about, if Russia gets across the river, they can begin to push towards the vital supply line up here. And if Ukraine can push into the north of it, this push here, these locations may be at risk of getting cut off, may not receive the resupplies and logistics it needs and what have you, thereby securing Krylovka and minimizing the risk of Russia crossing the river at this stage at least. So yeah, I think this is more important than we realize, and that Russia is now under pressure in holding this vital location, especially these two farms here outside of Krylovka. And beyond that, it also potentially has political ramifications. It shows that Ukraine is still in the fight in Kursk, that the Russians are not in control, that they have lost a little bit of initiative, and in this area Ukraine has some momentum. They pushed out here along this street here, and now they made this big push into the next town over here, and they've taken a tactical pig farm. And this, of course, probably will have the effect that Moscow will put pressure on the generals to solve this, to push the Ukrainians back, which means Russia will allocate even more troops, even more manpower, resources, and what have you to Kursk, thereby moving vital resources away from Ukraine into Russia, like we've talked about for months, moving the war from Ukraine into Russia. And Russia has already allocated roughly 100,000 troops to Kursk, and lost about 40% of those troops. So if they have to move in even more troops, I mean, then we can look at 150,000 Russian soldiers in the end, more casualties and what have you, weakening the front within Ukraine and moving the war over to Kursk and Russia proper. So significant move here by the Ukrainians, and we'll see if they can actually hold on to Cherkasskaya Konopelka, and if they can push in and secure Ulanok in the end as well. Really interesting, and I guess we'll have to wait and see where it all ends up when the weekend is over. And before we end the video, I was almost done with it and decided to add some more to it here. By reaching Ulanok, if they do that, they also have access to the roads leading south. You have a bridge here over the Pesel River, and then you can actually come down to Borki, where Ukraine was a couple of months back. And now, if Ukraine can take Ulanok, they can threaten Borki, and thereby threatening Plekovo and all the surrounding areas. But if they can get that far, who knows? But if they have Ulanok, it at least offers the potential Ukrainian push south to Borki and the River Pesel, which obviously will force the Russians to take that into account and fortify this area to prevent Ukraine from pushing further into Ulanok or further south from Ulanok. So that's probably gonna have to be it. Yeah. And yeah, that's that. Kursk, you don't have all the massive minefields that we see down in Ukraine. So when you commit to an assault and punch through the defensive lines, things happen and things happen fast. You advance several kilometers. Ukraine has gained 7 kilometers in just a few hours, and you can gain a lot of territory in rapid fashion with mechanized assault, motorized assaults, because you don't have the massive minefields. You have freedom of movement, even if there are 10,000 drones in the skies. So that is why you can see these dynamic changes in Kursk that you don't see elsewhere down in Ukraine in this war. Yeah, so we'll see. I guess we'll have to wait to see at the end of the weekend how effective this attack has been, if Ukraine can hold on to territory or if they will be pushed back by Russia eventually. But yeah, that's gonna have to be it. As always, go på marsch, Ukraine, and give them hell.